to Satsang. Today is the very powerful and special day of Durga Ashtami, or what we call Maha Ashtami. It's a day across the nation and even across the world where people are performing the sacred rituals, sacred ceremonies, sacred puja of the Mother Goddess. So it's a very powerful day. All these days are powerful, but today especially is a very, very powerful day to connect with that presence. It's also the day where people will go out and they'll get young girls, just young village girls or girls from the neighborhood, girls living on the streets, girls from anywhere, and they will dress them up like the Mother Goddess. Dress them up, feed them, worship them, just really, really treat them like the Mother Goddess has come to their home. And it's such a beautiful opportunity to see that Mother Goddess in all, as we were talking about in the Arati. I hope most of you were with us in the Arati. As we were talking about there, to really remember to see that Goddess in all. You know, for a lot of people it's easy to see the Goddess in a beautiful deity, a beautiful statue, an image of Durga or Lakshmi or Saraswati or Kali or any of the Mother Goddesses. But we forget to see that Goddess in the women and the girls in our life. So we go to the temple and we worship the Mother Goddess. And then we come home, or we go into the office place, or we go into the communities, and we disparage and belittle and insult and maybe even abuse the women and girls, or maybe not directly abuse them, but don't give them full rights, full equal rights, full equal opportunity, full equal power, which is also abuse. So it's a really, really powerful day to just, on the deepest spiritual level, connect with that power and energy of the Goddess. And on a societal level, on a cultural level, here we are in human bodies, you know, spiritual beings in human bodies having a human experience, to really remember that every girl, every woman, all of us, if you extend it even further, but especially embodied by the girls and women, really are the embodiments of that divine feminine, that Mother Goddess. But also, as I was saying in the Arati, it's not just human women. When we look at the words, you know, the Hindi language, unlike English, but like Spanish and like French, has male or female determinants for the words. So words are either masculine or they're feminine. And the word for creation is srishti, which is feminine. And the word for nature is prakriti, which is feminine. And the word for earth is dharti, which is feminine. And the word for that power, that energy that creates the creation, that creates nature, that has created the earth, is shakti, which is also feminine. So it's it's a beautiful time to just remember the pervasiveness of that divine feminine in everything, and to take our reverence for that divine feminine out of just the temples into our homes, into our offices, into our communities, into Mother Earth. And as they're doing so nicely and quietly. If everybody can just move up a little bit, we have a bunch of beautiful beings coming in through that door. So, I always say there's no Hindi translation for there's no more room. Can't even imagine how many people India is able to squeeze into one area. And I always say, in Hindi, there is no translation for there's no more room. Because there's always more room. So, to those of you who have just come in, welcome to Satsang. And we begin, as always, with a question that's come in advance from our online internet-based family, or they're based all over the world, but they join us via the internet. And after we take one of their questions, we will open it up to any questions that anyone here might have. Such beautiful questions. We are all servants of God. We tell our problems to God. But some things do not get completed on time. I assume he means by God. We too are very troubled these days, and we cannot even take the name of God. If we have the thought of a loan, for example, in our mind, then how can we worship God? In today's time, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. How can we come out of this problem? Who will help us? From Mahendra Mingal. Okay, so there's a lot of points in here. First of all, going back to the first line, saying we tell all our problems to God, but some things do not get completed on time. We've all got God on a schedule also. It reminds me of a poem that I used to have when I first came here, taped up on my desk, and it said something like, bear with me, it's been about 20 years since I've thought of this poem, but it said something like, as children, like children with broken toys, we bring our broken dreams to God to mend. One second. As children bring their broken tears, as children bring their broken toys with tears for us to mend. Yes, sorry. As children bring their broken toys with tears for us to mend, I brought my broken dreams to God because I thought he was my friend. But then, instead of leaving him in peace to work alone, I hung around and tried to help with ways that were my own. Finally, I snatched my dreams back and I cried, God, how can you be so slow? What could I do, my child, he said. You never did let go. So, in order for God to work, for any of us to work, we need whoever has given us the work to let go. We need to be able to do it in our way. I remember when I first started doing seva here, an exuberant, amazing, wonderful experience. But every once in a while, Puja Swamiji would come into the room where I was working with another paper or a question or something, or maybe some correction on something. And I found that in his presence, I couldn't actually do anything. And he would say, oh, could you just fix this? Or could you just... And it was the sort of thing that was tiny and nothing, and it would have taken me 15 seconds to do it if he had just told me to do it and then left. But because he was there with all of that divine presence, I naturally felt I wasn't consciously nervous on any kind of cognitive level, but just energetically being in that incredibly powerful divine presence, I couldn't do anything. Whatever it was he wanted me to do, I couldn't do it. Now, in this case with God, it's kind of the opposite. It's God we're giving the work to. But I think the point is the same, which is whether it's us not being able to work in the presence of someone who has asked us to do it for whatever reason, or whether it's us surrendering to God, knowing that God knows the right way to do things. Either way, things only happen when we let go. If we don't let go, nothing's gonna happen, I think about it like being in a car. And if the person who's driving you doesn't know where they're going, you're going to have to be really alert, hyper alert, kind of backseat driving, saying, take a right turn, take a left turn, slow down here, it's coming up. You won't be able to do anything else. It'll be kind of a stressful ride. But if the person who's driving you knows where they're going, you can lie down and nap in the back seat. You can close your eyes, listen to beautiful music, listen to a podcast, listen to whatever you want, chant your mantra, look out the window, get on a Zoom call. You could do anything, it doesn't matter. Because the person knows where they're going. And so when we give our problems to the divine, we have to understand the divine knows where we're going. In most cases, far better than we know where we're going. But our inability to let go can keep that from happening. And then in the second part of the question, do you want to come? You can come sit down. There's room. You want to come have a seat in the front too? Sure. Okay. Yeah, come. There's always room. Come. And then the second part says, we too are very troubled, and we cannot even take the name of God. If we're thinking about a loan in our mind, money loan, how can we worship God? Well, this is why the practice of meditation is so important. Because it teaches us how to make the mind still. This is a good point. It's not that God minds if we're also thinking about getting a loan for a house or a car. It's that we don't benefit from our conversation with God if our mind is somewhere else. God doesn't mind. But we don't benefit. It's like if you're sitting with a loved one and you're trying to share something very, very important and very deep, and you're trying to really deeply connect with this loved one, and you're so happy to be with the loved one. But as you're sitting with the loved one, your phone keeps ringing and you keep getting messages, and you don't turn the notifications off and you don't turn off the ringer, and every 2 seconds you keep looking down at what messages are coming. Well, your loved one might be very compassionate. Your loved one might not be bothered by this at all. Your loved one may think, no problem, I understand, she's very stressed. But you're not going to benefit from that beautiful moment with your loved one because you're so preoccupied. If you're going into a situation with your loved one, even if you're stressed, leave the phone outside. Turn off the ringer, turn off the notifications, allow yourself to be in that moment so you can experience that beautiful connection, that love. And in the same way, when we go to God, whether we speak about it as prayer or whether we speak about it as just divine communion, whether we think about it as meditation, however we think about it, God is compassionate. God's not going to give you demerits because your mind was elsewhere. But we don't benefit nearly as much from that experience because we haven't allowed ourselves to really drop into it. In order to drop into that spiritual connection, I have to drop out of the busyness of my mind. Today it's a loan. Tomorrow it'll be paying off the loan. The next day it'll be a loan for something else. The day after that it'll be paying off that loan. Then it'll be getting a better job so you can pay off all your loans. Then it'll be loaning money to someone else. But I mean, it's always something. It's the nature of the mind. The nature of the mind is to jump around. It's why we speak about it as the monkey mind. And don't hold it against the mind, that's just its nature. It's like holding barking against a dog. It's its nature, it's what it does. Or holding stinging against a scorpion or against a bee. It's what they do, it's their nature. You can't hold it against it. So the nature of the mind is to be a bit frazzled, a bit frenetic, to kind of jump around. And it's why we learn through our practice of meditation how to work with the mind, how to bring stillness in the mind. Because unlike a bee or a scorpion, the mind is actually trainable. So even though jumping around is its nature, you actually can train it. You actually can work with it much like a muscle or a skill that you develop. And so in meditation, we learn to work with the mind in order to make it still enough. That when we go to God, when we are chanting a mantra or doing japa or praying, we're able to just be with the divine. I mean, think for a moment. Just close your eyes and imagine for a moment that you're in a beautiful embrace. You're hugging someone you really love. It doesn't have to be romantic. It can be your mom, it can be your dad, it can be your grandma or grandpa, or your child, or your sister or brother, or your best friend. It can be anyone. It can be your dog. But just imagine that as you're in the midst of that hug, as beautiful as it feels, that you're constantly thinking about something else. Or that in the hug, you've kind of got your phone out there and you're also scrolling messages while you're hugging. One hand is hugging, the other hand is, scrolling your messages. Well, suddenly, that hug doesn't feel as good anymore, does it? Suddenly we lose that experience because we're so distracted. So even if the one we're hugging doesn't mind, we need to learn not to be so distracted so that we are able to really dive into deep and beautiful moments, not just with the divine, but also with our loved ones. So, yeah, we're distracted. But don't let that keep you from doing japa. Don't let that keep you from praying. Just let that make you increase your meditation practice, increase your mindfulness practice. Learn better to be more and more aware and present and mindful. So that when you go to God, you're able to stop thinking about the loan for a moment. It'll still be there when you're done. Whatever troubles, whatever stresses, whatever grudges, whatever it is that's filling your mind, it'll still be there when you're done. Don't worry, it's not going anywhere. If you're worried about that, write them all down before you start meditating. So you can be sure to remember them all afterwards if you want. But I think frequently what you'll find when you're done meditating is, I don't need that list. They're not so important. Things will take care of themselves. So then the last part of the multi-part question. In today's time, the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. How can we come out of this problem? Who will help us? So there's two teachings in the Bhagavad Gita that, for me, when you take them together, are the answer to this question. One of them is the teaching in which Bhagavan Krishna says, whenever there is darkness in the world that is winning out over light, whenever adharma, lack of dharma, is winning out over dharma, I incarnate in form to bring light back to the darkness, to bring dharma back to the adharma. That's part one. Part two is Bhagavan Krishna says, I am in everything. In everything. Later on he says, everything is in me. Then of course there is nothing but me. But staying with these, what we realize is all of this incarnated world, including us, is pervaded by the divine. Bhagavan Krishna tells us in the Gita, we're told it in the Upanishads, that the universe is pervaded by the divine. So when you put those two together, what do you get? Well, to me, you get a very powerful teaching that we, each of us, individually and us collectively, are that embodiment of the divine, that incarnation in form, to restore light to the darkness, to restore dharma to the adharma. So who will help us? We will help us. We are the ones to help us. With God's grace, with God's blessing, with God's connection, by plugging ourselves into the beautiful energetic powerhouse that's there, that, actual electricity powers all of these different great things. But there's also an energetic divine powerhouse for all of us. That when we plug ourselves into it, through our prayer, through our meditation, through our seva, through our japa, through our surrender, through our bhakti, we become really like any of these electrical appliances that suddenly gets electricity flowing through it and then is actually able to do what it's meant to do. Whatever the appliance is, if it's not plugged in, it's not going to be very useful. Your toaster can't toast, your blender can't blend, your camera can't record, your light can't give light, the microphone can't give sound. They may be beautiful instruments, but essentially they're useless until they're plugged in and that flow of electricity comes through them. And in the same way, our spiritual practice is a way of plugging in. And whether dharmically we are a toaster and we're going to produce toast, or we're a blender and we're going to blend things up, or we are a camera that's going to record, or a light that's going to give light, whatever each of our individual dharma may be, we've got to be plugged in so that that energy flows through us. And when it does, then we find that we are the ones able to help us. There's more than enough wealth to go around. There's more than enough food to go around. There's more than enough land to go around. When those who have the luxury to choose something different, the situation will be different. It is up to those who have the luxury to choose something different. And so whether it's a choice for a political candidate who might be charging us higher taxes, but who's going to take that money and spend it on better education or better health care for those who need it, whether it's choosing to go vegetarian or vegan so that the grain produced in the world is not cycled through animal agriculture and livestock, thereby rendering tens of thousands of people hungry enough to starve to death every day. It means choosing organic, choosing fair trade, choosing to use our power of choice to choose in such a way that the ripples we spread on earth are ripples of positivity and healing and help and equality and oneness and rights, rather than exploitation and harm. But that's up to each of us. By God's grace, we live in free societies. We can buy what we want, eat what we want, drink what we want, wear what we want, vote how we want. Which means that we have to use our free will, our intelligence, our compassion, to choose for equality, to choose for others, to choose for sustainability. And if everyone who has the luxury to choose chose that, we would be in a vastly different situation on earth. So I think that gets us successfully through all three parts of that first question. I'm happy to open it up to any questions that anyone here has. Yes. Okay, he's going to bring you a mic.
My name is Unya. Pardon me if you don't understand what I'm saying. I have someone to help me here.
Sure, wonderful.
I did tapas before 2007. I did tapas here. And around 2007, I was sleeping in my room and a white ball of light left my body and it went out of the window. And something black in color took over my body. A black form took over my body from the back. And ever since, everything has turned around. And I have been traveling all over. I come from Kenya and come here. And from Ramana Maharishi in Mananda, coming here.
Beautiful. Welcome.
It's not really but I have no idea where I'm going anymore.
Okay.
It's been 7
Beautiful.
years.
So, what's most important is faith. The energy that you experienced leaving your body, it seemed to be white light. The energy that you experienced coming in seemed to be dark. But here's what I can tell you. There is no light or power of any color that is more powerful than the love of God or the grace of God. And so, that which was leaving your body, I believe, because you're in a very holy place, you've come, as you say, from Kenya, you've come here, you're in this very, very holy place, in a very, very holy time. A lot of times we can't necessarily see things as they are, right? We have that rope and snake situation. We see a rope, but we see it in the dark. We think it's a snake. We get afraid. Children see a jacket on a hanger in the dark. They think it's a monster. You're here in a very, very sacred place at a very, very sacred time. I'm going to have full faith that that which left your body is that which your body needed to be rid of, even though to your perception at that time it seemed like it was something of white light, and therefore we would assume that it was something good. But I've never heard of anyone coming from across the world to the banks of Ganga during the sacred time of Navaratri and having something good leave them and something bad energetically come in. So I'm going to, in my mind, I understand this as a rope snake situation. You've got fears. You've got struggles that you're having. I know some of it from people here who you've been able to connect with. And I think it's really beautiful that you're here. And I think that that which has left your body is that which you actually needed to be free of. And that which has come in is powerful. I mean, these days of Navaratri, we've been talking almost every day about different manifestations of the Divine Mother, many of which are fierce. Last night we celebrated Kalaratri. So Kali is dark. A dark, colored energy. And yet, her hands are in blessing mode. She's here to bless us. But sometimes that blessing requires freeing us, as we've been talking over the last few nights, of things that don't serve us. Things that we may be attached to, but that nonetheless are actually hindering us and holding us back. And so, when I hear you describe it, to me, it's an energy of that Mother Goddess, that Kalaratri, that energy of Kali coming in and removing from you that which you needed to be free of. Maybe it's fear, worry, concern, stress, tension, some expectations, some attachments, but filling you with that very powerful presence of the Mother Goddess. So I think this is a time for you to focus on faith. The Divine has brought you all the way here and has brought you here at this very sacred time and has brought you right into a very beautiful place and into the arms and hands of very beautiful people. And I think you're being taken care of. Yeah. I wouldn't worry at all. Other questions? Yes.
Namaste, Sadhviji. So as we live in a time where we have quarter life crisis and midlife crisis all over, so I just wanted to ask, what is the purpose of life and how do we find it? Because I feel that the purpose ultimately is giving, but the way could be different, like wisdom, knowledge, money, or giving physical seva. But what should be the purpose of life and how one finds it?
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Quarter life crises, midlife crises, yes. So the purpose of life in the fundamental core teaching, the reason each of us has taken birth in this human form, because we haven't just taken birth, we've taken birth in a human form, which is considered the highest, the pinnacle of evolution. Which is interesting to me because anybody who's ever worked with animals knows that in most cases, they actually behave a lot better than humans. It's a very rare animal who harms another unless they are hungry and the one they have harmed is their food. So the lion kills the zebra because the lion needs to eat the zebra and use the zebra to feed his family. So for survival, or when they are directly threatened, then they will fight. We seem to be the only species on Earth who harm for pretty much no reason at all, or who take the idea of survival and threat far beyond the body into things like, that was my parking space, bang. You cut me off in traffic, bang. I mean, there's no other species on Earth that just indiscriminately harms another. So, when we're considered the pinnacle, the highest form of evolution, it's got to be something other than how we act and behave. And the reason is because it is said that humans are the only ones, the only species, that can actually be conscious of themselves and therefore attain what we call enlightenment or God realization or self-realization or Atma Darshan. You can only have that if I can anchor myself in that which is looking at myself. If I'm just hungry and I steal something and I eat it and there's no awareness of what is hunger, who is feeling, who is stealing, who is worried I'm going to get caught, then I'm never going to have that awareness. But as humans, we're able to say, anger is happening. But I am not the anger, because see, I'm the one aware that anger is happening. So I'm not the anger. Lust is happening. But I'm not the lust, because see, I'm the one over here looking at it, aware of the fact that there is a rise of the chemical and electrical behavior in the brain and the body that translates as lust. And then we get to go even deeper and we become aware that we are aware. So it's said that humans are the only ones who can do that. And that therefore we are the highest level of evolution. As the highest level of evolution, we have a very unique dharma. A unique responsibility, which is to recognize the truth of who we are. That we are not the anger, we are not the lust, we are not the chemistry, we are not the electricity, we are not the body, we are not the bank account. But we are spirit. Pure consciousness. divinity. Whatever words you use, it doesn't matter. But that's who we are. So that's our collective dharma. That is your purpose. That is all of our purposes. But then along with that, we also have this very human experience with skills and abilities and opportunities and resources and intelligence. And as you say, maybe the purpose is to give. Yes, it absolutely is. Pujya Swamiji says, giving is living. Doesn't get any simpler than that. But it's not giving when I'm identified as giver. So it's not about, oh, my purpose is to be the great humanitarian, the great philanthropist, the great giver, and you people are all the receivers. No. That's illusion. That's Maya. That's wrong direction. It's giving, serving, in all the different ways, as you mentioned. We may give of our time, of our resources, of our skills. We may give money. We give so many ways we give. But in every case, however we're giving, it is to give with the awareness that it is self-giving to self. Self-giving to self. There is no giver, there is no receiver. It is all just the self. And we give so that, not because people need, their soul has agreed in this incarnation to play the role of the recipient so that we can play the role of the giver. That's all it is. It's not that we are the ones who have and they have nothing. It's that we've agreed on some soul level that for this scene in the cosmic drama, I'm the one who gives and you're the one who receives. But you receive so that I may experience me in you. Because that's the point of giving, is to actually see the self in the one you are serving. So when I'm hungry, I eat something. When I'm thirsty, I drink water. If I'm in pain, I do whatever I can to alleviate the pain. If I'm cold, I put on a sweater. If I'm sick, I go to the doctor or hospital or whatever it may be. The spiritual way of giving is to give with an awareness that their hunger is your hunger. I'm not giving because you're poor and I've got a lot and you better be grateful. And I better win some kind of humanitarian award. I give because your hunger is my hunger. And to not give creates a discomfort in me in the same way that my own hunger does. I feel your hunger like I feel my hunger, and so I give. That's the way we give. And whatever it is we're giving, a bit of advice, some of our time, some of our skill, some of our ability, some of our money, whatever we're giving, we give it for the sacred opportunity that the recipient is giving to us to actually see ourselves in the one we are serving, to see ourselves as simply a channel for the divine. So that's why we're here. And I love the idea of a quarter life crisis, because even though 2025 is a bit young to start having crises, it's better than waiting till midlife, because then you've got a whole lot longer to actually be able to walk on the right path. Traditionally the midlife crisis is people who have spent the first few decades of their life just running and running and running and running to collect and collect and collect and collect, and then they go, oh my God, what have I been doing? right? And typically the men kind of sell everything and get a motorcycle and ride around the world, and the women do all sorts of different things. I mean, typically, traditionally, stereotypically, it's the awareness of, oh my God, I've been wasting my time, wasting my life in that which doesn't matter at all. Now I want to experience the world. Now I want to experience freedom. Now I want to be one with the universe. Now I want to be on a spiritual path. Better to do that at 20, 25 than 45, 50. You've got a lot more years left to do it. And by the way, it doesn't mean thou shalt not earn a living. Because remember, those are still your householder years. You're going to have to support a family. So it doesn't mean you can't earn a living or have a job. It just means that you remember what you're here for. My academic background is psychology, and one of my very favorite psychological studies, and we'll end with this for tonight, is a study that they did where they took in participants who are almost always graduate students or university students, just because they typically tend to be the ones who the researchers have around. But I mention it because they're intelligent, they're used to paying attention, they're used to studying, they're used to following instructions. So in this particular experiment, the researchers took a group of subjects and they gave them a task. And the task was to watch a basketball game for 6 minutes between the red team and the white team. And they were told, your job is to count how many baskets each team makes. Easy. You watch a 6-minute basketball game. White team makes some baskets, red team makes some baskets. Basketball's a lot easier to follow than some other sports. So, end of the basketball game, they all get a piece of paper. And on it, there are 3 questions. Number 1, how many baskets did the white team make? Most of them got it perfectly correct. Number 2, how many baskets did the red team make? Most of them got it perfectly right. Third question, did you notice anything else? More than 50% of the participants wrote no. Now remember, it was only 6 minutes. And remember that they correctly counted the number of baskets, meaning they were staring at the screen. They didn't fall asleep. They didn't check their phone. They weren't distracted. Turns out, halfway through the basketball game, a gorilla came onto the middle of the court and proceeded to dance center stage for 30 seconds before exiting the frame. Now, this was actually what the researchers were studying. They didn't care about baskets. They wanted to know how many people noticed the gorilla. Originally, they thought, well, of course, everybody will. How could you miss it? More than 50% of the participants missed the gorilla. Now you think, how is that even possible? And the answer is really simple. It's not what they were told to look for. If they had been told, count baskets, but by the way, don't miss the gorilla. Or even count baskets, but keep your eyes open because there's actually something else that's going to happen. Count baskets, but actually that's not what it's about. They never would have missed it. They would have been alert and aware that something else is happening that's even more important than the baskets, and I must pay attention. But they weren't told that. They were simply instructed, count the baskets. And in our lives, most of us are instructed, get a good education, get a good degree, get a good job, make a lot of money, build a home, have a white picket fence, have a family, get your kids in good school, buy nice things, look nice in the nice things. And we very rarely stop to ask ourselves, did we miss something? Was there something else? And of course there was something else. Because of course none of this is what it's actually about. Like the baskets were not what the study was about. And most of us are like those participants. We miss it entirely. We do exactly what we were told to do. Education, check. Title, check. Career, check. Money, check. House, check. Marriage, check. Like we do it all. But we don't stop to wonder. Have I missed something? Is this really what it was all about? And so I'm very glad to hear about quarter life crises, because I love that at such a young age, people are starting to wonder, hey, what's it really about? What are we supposed to be paying attention to here? Because of course you can count baskets and see the gorilla at the same time. And in the same way, you can do the job, you can do the education, you can do the family, you can do the house, and also not miss what it's about. So make sure that with every minute and every moment, as much as you can remember, that you just keep allowing yourself to tap into this truth of who am I? I'm not the role I'm playing, I'm not the clothes I'm wearing. I'm spirit, I'm soul, I'm divinity, I'm consciousness, which means I am not separate from the person in front of me. I'm one with all. You're going to start to live with much more compassion, much more love, much more understanding, much more connection. And that giving will just flow out of you like a fragrance flows out of a flower. Nobody has to remind the flower, hey, come on, remember. Give us some fragrance here. Just gives its fragrance. It's what it does. Because it knows who it is. And when you know who you are, you're just automatically going to give that fragrance of who you are. You're going to give in that way. And yeah, sometimes it'll be money, sometimes it'll be time, sometimes it'll be your skills, sometimes it'll be a smile, sometimes it'll be any one of a number of other things. But that giving is just going to flow out of you. Like an apple tree gives apples. Because it knows what it is. Beautiful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening, everyone. Remember that we have the Shabri Ram Leela taking place on the Ghat from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. It's the beautiful live rendition of the Ramayana. It's going on for 5 days. Today is the 3rd day. So you're all more than welcome and encouraged to join for that as well. And I look so forward to seeing you all tomorrow.